This is the neighborhood of Bayview Village, placed over here in Toronto. As we do, we'll start over in the northern portion of the neighborhood and sort of make our way from there. Over here, making up the northern border of the neighborhood, is Finch Avenue, which is a very major east-west street relative to the city. The stretch of it that runs along the neighborhood is mostly zippy with cars flashing by. Nothing really right there. Just south of there is this general area. Pretty much everywhere shown in orange, actually, are a bunch of now expensive, quite desirable homes along windy cul-de-sac streets. These places feel really laid back and peaceful on the whole. Right on the footstep of this green ravine area, which we'll touch on in a bit. Originally, those places were all somewhat sleepy, suburban homes, mostly one-story, out-of-the-way bungalows built around the 50s. However, then Toronto prospered massively, and the homes became very expensive, and, although still laid back on the whole, not so out of the way anymore, because although those areas themselves remain nice and peaceful, just a short trek south is this area around Shepherd Avenue. It used to be void of any real activity, but now it's dotted to the brim with sparkling tall buildings and bustling shopping centers, among other things. The most notable of these is, what do you know, Bayview Village Shopping Mall over here, which is cool and shiny and modern and is somewhere that you could pretty much solely survive off of if by some miracle everywhere else closed or hungry aliens came down from Mars and ate everything but Bayview Village, or if you just simply don't want to go shop anywhere else. You know, you could survive off it because it's a big mall. However, if none of those outlandish things did happen, which they won't because they're all stupid, and you just wanted to shop somewhere else, or just needed something a little different, then among other things, there's a big fat IKEA around here, so that's also cool. Overall, this area is perhaps one of the most up-and-coming parts of the whole city. The epitome of that is over around here, around the southwestern portion of the neighborhood, shown in light green. Over here is primarily a bunch of tall, modern condo buildings, towering over nice, new, very expensive-looking townhomes right by the structures. This section of the neighborhood isn't all modern and shiny quite yet, however, since just in the red-orange, although probably more orange, and whatever, over here are a couple seemingly entirely out of place detached homes. They're placed right near Shepherd, backing right into those massive buildings from entirely different generations. Those homes are most likely just leftovers from when this area was more like the cul-de-sac, tree-lined streets farther north. Soon developers are sure to knock on the homeowners' doors and pay them handsomely for their properties so they can tear them down and most likely build, you guessed it, more modern townhouses. Another not as flashy residential area, as things stand, is in this orange patch, which is seemingly made up of shared homes and whatnot. Kind of, sort of. This goes down to right near the Ontario 401 Express, which is this massive highway that borders the neighborhood to the south. One of the largest highways in the whole province. Everyone. Those aforementioned areas just north of the highway are also being revitalized as we speak. Moving on a bit now, if you go along just west, you'll reach the very major street of Bayview, the neighborhood and mall's namesake, which acts as the western border in the neighborhood. Bayview, similar to Finch, is generally a zippy street, with cars flashing by most of the way along it, and the stretch that runs along Bayview Village is no exception to that. Along the street here sits the very originally named Bayview Village Park. Wow, what a surprise. Which is a nice, spacious park. It's just one of the many green areas that inhabit the neighborhood, because just east, almost connected to the park, is this great big, very noticeable general green area. This is a ravine, or a bunch of ravines, around the Don River, one of the biggest rivers that runs through the city, and is pretty much the closest to urban wilderness that you'll get in the city. Everyone? This dipping down sort of river basin area has always played a huge role in the neighborhood. Before all the attractive development that we touched on, this area had been a major feature here, as it remains to this day. Tranquil and lush, the ravines make for a terrific place to take a nice morning stroll, and almost entirely make you feel as though you're in a pleasant forest, worlds away from the contrasting hustle and bustle that now sits a relatively short distance below to the south. This is especially true for the homes lying in it, shown in blue, which pretty much have the ravine as their backyard, and because of that are generally speaking the most desirable and expensive homes in the neighborhood. Speaking of the Don River runs right smack dab through the place where the streets of Shepherd and Leslie meet in the southeastern portion of the neighborhood. This makes for an interesting, elevated intersection, and a very large one at that. Leslie is also quite a major street in the neighborhood, speaking of it, and acts as the eastern border for virtually all of Bayview Village, except the very southern portion, which they pretty much just drew a straight vertical line across for whatever reason. Much like Bayview Avenue and Finch, Leslie is a fast, zippy street. Kind of, sort of. Just south of that intersection is North York General Hospital, which is a teaching hospital, and a major one at that. There's also the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine just across the street. Needless to say, they've got their medical institutions down and good, probably. If you venture north of there, more towards Finch Avenue, you'll reach a whole big general group of townhouses near the northeastern portion of the neighborhood. These are separated from the ever-present tree-lined cul-de-sac streets, showcased in orange farther inward by these train tracks, which sort of wind along a very far distance in either direction. Very briefly, some schools in the neighborhood are most notably perhaps Elkhorn Public School and Bayview Middle School, but there's also Forest Grove Montessori School, as well as École Bayview Nord, which I probably didn't pronounce right. Alright, so in conclusion, Bayview Village used to be nice and tranquil and boring. Now it's nice and tranquil and boring and exciting and a lot more expensive. Kind of, sort of, maybe.